At the height of Cold War tensions, the world found itself divided not only ideologically but militarily. As NATO solidified its position in the West, the Soviet Union responded with its own bloc in the East. This was the Warsaw Pact, officially known as the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance. From its creation in 1955 to its dissolution in 1991, the Warsaw Pact symbolized the iron grip of Soviet influence over Eastern Europe, acting as a counterbalance to Western military power. But what exactly was the Warsaw Pact? How was it structured? And was it truly effective? 1. Creation of the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was established on May 14, 1955, in Warsaw, Poland, just a few weeks after West Germany joined NATO, a development that alarmed the Soviet Union. The formation of this alliance served a dual purpose: to consolidate the Eastern Bloc under Soviet leadership and to create a formal military counterweight to the Western alliance. The founding members were the Soviet Union. Albania withdrew in 1968. Poland, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. While officially a mutual defense organization, the Warsaw Pact was clearly dominated by Moscow, which used it not only for strategic defense but also as a tool to maintain control over its satellite states. 2. Structure and command. Unlike NATO, where decision-making is somewhat shared among members, the Warsaw Pact was heavily centralized. The Soviet Union commanded the structure both politically and militarily. Key components included Political Consultative Committee, PCC. This was the formal political decision-making body, but it largely rubber-stamped decisions already made by Soviet leadership. Unified Command of the Pact Armed Forces. This military command structure placed Soviet officers in key positions, particularly the role of Supreme Commander, always held by a Soviet general. Integrated military planning. Although member states retained their national armies, they were expected to adhere to Soviet strategies, equipment standards, and doctrine. The structure ensured that in any confrontation with NATO, the Eastern Bloc would act as a single Soviet-led force. However, this rigid control also created tensions with member states, many of whom resented Moscow's overreach. 3. Key operations and interventions. Although the Warsaw Pact never fought a war with NATO, it was repeatedly used as an instrument of internal repression within the Eastern Bloc. Its most notable military operations were Hungary 1956. After Hungarian leader Imre Nagy attempted to withdraw from the Warsaw Pact and adopt a neutral stance, Soviet forces invaded, crushing the revolution and reinstalling a pro-Moscow government. Czechoslovakia 1968. Prague Spring, when Alexander Dubček introduced liberal reforms under the policy of socialism with a human face, Warsaw Pact troops, excluding Romania and Albania, invaded to reassert Soviet control, initiating the Brezhnev Doctrine, the principle that no socialist country could stray from the Soviet model. These interventions showed that the Warsaw Pact was less about mutual defense and more about enforcing Soviet dominance over Eastern Europe. 4. Challenges and discontent. The pact faced numerous internal challenges. Albania distanced itself from the alliance early on, siding with Maoist China and formally withdrawing in 1968. Romania, under Nicolae Ceausescu, openly opposed the 1968 invasion of Czechoslovakia and often pursued an independent foreign policy, though it remained a nominal member. Tensions between national sovereignty and Soviet control became more visible in the 1980s, as economic stagnation and rising dissent weakened Eastern European regimes. As Eastern Bloc populations grew increasingly disillusioned with communism, the Warsaw Pact became less viable as a mechanism of control. 5. Decline and dissolution. By the late 1980s, under the twin pressures of Gorbachev's reforms, Glasnost and Perestroika, and a surge of pro-democracy movements in Eastern Europe, the foundations of the Warsaw Pact began to crumble. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and communist regimes across the Pact's member states were swept away by democratic revolutions. East Germany reunified with West Germany in 1990 and joined NATO. The Warsaw Pact formally dissolved on July 1, 1991, just months before the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. 6. Legacy and effectiveness. The Warsaw Pact was effective in achieving its immediate goals. It served as a deterrent against NATO. It allowed the Soviet Union to maintain military and political hegemony over Eastern Europe for nearly 4 decades. However, its effectiveness came at the cost of widespread repression and the suppression of national sovereignty. Rather than fostering solidarity, it bred resentment among member states. Its rigid, top-down structure made it ill-suited for adaptation, and when the political winds shifted, it collapsed with surprising speed. The Warsaw Pact was not just a military alliance, it was a symbol of Cold War division and Soviet authoritarianism. While it never faced NATO in open conflict, it played a critical role in shaping Cold War geopolitics, both as a tool of Soviet imperial power and as a mechanism for suppressing reform and dissent in Eastern Europe. Its rise and fall mirror the fate of the Soviet Union itself, born out of fear and ideology sustained by force and ultimately undone by the very people it sought to control.